my part. It was just a blessing. And that was part of my benefits. So, I turned to the Lord and I said, sige na nga Lord, tanggapin ko na nga. Kunyari pa. But, sabi ko, but Lord, please show me how I can glorify you with this. And you know, brothers and sisters, what happened? That Volvo station wagon, I did have it. My family loved it. My children loved it. Sabi nila, Volvo daw is the safest car. So my family loved it. And it was used for service. It was a station wagon. So it could fit about 2 or 3 guitars, 2 amps. It could fit music books, ganyan. So, ginagawa kong kargahan ng mga community activities. Okay lang sa akin yan. Okay ka lang ba, Brother Randy? Baka magasgas yung... Hindi, okay lang yan. Volvo pa naman yung coach. Hindi, okay lang yan. Kargahan mo pang service yan. You know the other thing that it was used for? Several lingkod members who got married, that was their bridal car. So I saved them a cost already. Kasi nagpaplano sila, bridal car. Tapos, mahal din yung bridal car di ba? So sabi nila, Brother Rans, pwede pa sabi ko, sige, sa akin pati gasolina, sa akin na. Yan. So, nakaka-serve pa siya. But what is the point? What am I trying to illustrate? Whatever gifts we receive, it's meant for us to enjoy, but it does not end there. Let's think about how am I gonna use this to glorify the Lord. The 4th principle is giving. Giving is part of our call as disciples. My example there is Mother Teresa. And Christians have the responsibility for financial giving, and we're going to dig deeper into this, for sharing the resources with one another, so that no one will be in need. I have so many stories about this, but let me reserve that for later. This is part of the stewardship the Lord requires of His disciples over His resources. Pwede ba, dito sa Lingkod Manila, dapat walang nangangailangan. Bakit? Kasi may brothers and sisters Kailangan tayo-tayo magtutulungan. Di ba? That's part of it. That's part of being community. It doesn't mean na mag-uutungan tayo sa isa't isa dahil magiging cause naman ng difficulties, ng broken relationships. But we have to help one another. And financial giving indicates the condition of our hearts and the extent of our conversion to the Lord. You know the story of the widow's mite? It was a gospel not so far back. Sabi ni Jesus, nagbigay, di ba, yung may mayaman, nagbigay, malaki, and then may widow, 2 copper coins. Nagkling-kling pa. And sabi ni Jesus, who gave more? It was the widow, because she gave all she had. Why do you think could the widow give all she had? Why? Because she trusts the Lord. There's no other reason. She knows that tomorrow God will provide for her again. Kaya kayang-kaya niya ibigay lahat 'yon. So it shows the condition of our hearts, the way we give. Kung kuripot magbigay, alam mong yung puso nung kuripot din, di ba? And you might mistake me. There's a reason for spending appropriately. For example, like kami sa pamilya namin, kuripot talaga kami sa ibang bagay. Pero pagdating sa tithing, sa education, my children, they both study in LaSalle. Not cheap. Because I want the best education for them. Health, kung anong kailangan gawin sa health, do it. We have regular check-ups, dental, ganyan. Hindi namin pinapagtipiran yan. Giving, kung may nangangailangan, may community member who is in need, we will gladly help. No questions asked. Now, for other things, medyo kuripot kami when we, try to spend for not so important things. I have clothes with me that have been with me for a long, long time. I've made several decisions, even in some of the things. Like for example, there was a when I was single, I was not yet as committed as I am right now. Oh my, you should see my shirts. Ang mamahal, Lacoste, Ralph, you should see my, whatever, my watches, my ganyan. Then when I started having a family and then started making these kinds of decisions, yung pabango ko na dating Lacoste, o kaya basta yung, very expensive cologne. Ngayon, awin niyo ako, ano na lang yan? Bench na lang yan, bench. Yung 180 pesos yata. Pero mabango. Tsaka pinapapili ko yung wife ko. Basta piliin mo yung magugustuhan mo. Yun lang naman importante sa akin eh. Yung gusto mo yung amoy ko. Di ba? Financial giving indicates your gratitude to God, generosity and concern for others, trust in God. The magnitude of the way you give, the magnitude is directly proportionate to your gratitude to the Lord, to your generosity and concern for others, to your trust in God. If until now, for those of you who have been in lingkod for a long time, and until now, hindi pa rin kayo nagbibigay ng contributions sa lingkod, parang pwede ko kayong tanungin, may tiwala ba kayo sa Panginoon? Bakit hindi kayo makapagbigay? For those of you who until now, barya-barya pa rin yung linalagay sa church, I can ask the question, may tiwala ba kayo sa Panginoon? Bakit ganun lang yung paglalagay? And it's not the amount. It's more important, I guess, is its percentage to what you're earning. Diba? And we'll talk about that. Remember, the ultimate purpose of wealth is to love. The ultimate purpose of wealth is to love. You'll read this in some of Bo's books. I'm supposed to show you a video, but I'm gonna skip this because it'll take too long. Let me just continue. So do you recall the principles of stewardship? What are the four? What are the four keywords na lang? Belongs, provides, enjoys, giving. Let's continue talking about financial giving. Let's continue talking about financial giving. Since the time of Abraham, God's people have expressed their stewardship over their possessions in three basic ways. So yung mga ikikwento ko sa inyo ngayon, hindi to inimbento ni Randy. Now, these are things that have been practiced since the time of Abraham. What are they? Tithing, resource sharing, and almsgiving. Those are the three ways to give. Three best ways to give. What are they? Okay, tithing. Can we read together? Tithing is the practice whereby a tenth of one's income or goods is given to the support and extension of the Christian cause. The practice has been supported by Jewish law. Deuteronomy 14 says, "Be sure to save 1/10 of all your crops each year. Take it to the place the Lord your God will choose where He is to be worshipped." So if you take a look at this verse, who is speaking here? Do you know who's speaking there? It's actually the Lord who's speaking there. And then if you look at the next one pa, Leviticus 27:30. Okay. 1/10 of all crops belong to the Lord, including the crops from fields and the fruit from trees. That 1/10 is holy to the Lord. The tithe is considered holy. The tithe is considered holy. If you look at history, the way that tithing was being practiced, in the Old Testament, the way they practiced it was that a tenth. So the first, sabi nila, the first fruit of your labor. If this is your harvest, the first tenth goes to the Lord. So the tenth goes to the Lord. Now, a lot of people take a look at the tenth. Tinitignan nila yung sweldo nila. Sabi nila, sweldo ko 10,000 pesos per month. Yung 1/10 nun, 1,000 pesos. Ang laki-laki naman ng 1,000 pesos. Ibibigay ko yung 1,000 sa Panginoon. Bibigay ko sa simbahan, sa lingkod, sa wherever. Parang hindi ko yata kaya yon. A lot of people focus on the 10th, on the 1,000. They forget about the 9,000. They forget that first and foremost, this entire thing is yours because it was given by the Lord. And therefore, the tithe is showing your trust in the Lord. Actually, hinihingi lang ng Panginoon yan para matignan kung talagang may tiwala kayo sa Kanya. Because kung may tiwala kayo sa Kanya, then you begin to realize that this entire 10,000 comes from the Lord, and I just give this 1,000 because I trust that the Lord will continue on providing for my needs. And if you don't give that 1,000 to the Lord, what is it showing? It's showing a lack of trust. Now, sabi siguro ng iba, lit naman ang example mo, Randy, 10,000. Mas malaki sweldo ko dyan. 50,000 ang sweldo ko every month. Tapos pagkino, Randy, 50,000. Yung 1/10 nun, 5,000 na, masyado nang malaki yun. Again, you forget to see the 45. We forget to see the 90%. You see what I mean? Okay, but anyway, the way it is practiced, 1/10, in the Old Testament, a tenth was given to the Lord. In the New Testament, Jesus himself encourages disciples to continue with the practice of tithing. In fact, he started a revolution here. And he said, it should not end with a tenth. Because what was the story of the widow's mite? What I just, mentioned a while ago. The widow really trusted that the Lord will provide because she was able to give all that she had. In the early Christian communities, and this is the Acts of the Apostles already, in the early Christian communities, the way they practiced was more than tenth. They would share. So they would live together. Kung may nangangailangan, they would sell their property and help the person. So it was communal. So it was more than a tenth. And then they would sell. If you read those passages, you're gonna encounter things like they sold their property and gave the proceeds to the apostles so that they can continue their mission work. Di ba sila Saint Paul, sila Timothy, sila Barnabas, they moved around, hindi ba? And as they moved around, guess what? They need money. Where do they get their money? Well, they were working. Saint Paul was a tent builder. He was building tents and he was selling them. But at the same time, they were also supported by the early Christian communities. So they gave more than just a tenth. Now, traditional church teaching says that, until now, the teaching is that 10% of one's income goes to the work of the Lord. And in Lingkod, the same is practiced. The teaching of Lingkod is that 10% should go to the work of the Lord. It doesn't necessarily mean it goes to Lingkod. It goes to the work of the Lord. Let me give you an example. Part of it should actually go to your parish. I have a question for you, brothers and sisters. When you go to Mass, And you can raise your hands. How many of you, even before you go to Mass, know exactly how much you're going to put